In 1982, after teaching math for 2 years in the tiny rainforest community of Nguti in Cameroon's southwest province, I arrived in Buea, an old German colonial town, to help write a math curriculum. My house was nestled on the humid slopes of Mount Cameroon, surrounded by banana and avocado trees, where the air was cool and tomatoes grew like weeds. Everyone was kind and generous, but after 6 months, I had Cameroonian colleagues rather than Cameroonian friends. I longed for genuine Cameroonian friendship. The people I worked with held master's degrees and PhDs in education and policy, but when they arrived in the morning, they would greet each other with, "Countryman, how for skin? Massa, I don't walk a fine." Then they would perform a handshake in which they would clasp hands, slid their palms one over the other, and snap their fingers as they released. Very cool. When they greeted me, they said, "Hello, Mr. Matthew. How are you doing?" with a very proper British accent. After work, as I was finishing the daily shopping at my regular vegetable vendor, who had the best plantains and the sweetest finger bananas, I overheard Prosper, one of the teachers working at my office. "Mommy, I beg, bring the countryman price." She gave him a, "Oh, fine" look and told him, "Bring the money." How did he do that? He paid 100 francs less than I did. For me, it wasn't about money, it was about belonging. When Cameroonians greet one another, someone they know, they use the term countryman. The term refers to someone from their tribe or area where they grew up. More generally, it signifies someone you're close to, an insider. When people go to the market, they ask for the countryman price. I wanted to be a countryman, be part of the group. I was close to some Peace Corps volunteers, but I had traveled 10,000 miles to escape American culture with its suburbs, dog-eat-dog lifestyle, and Ronald Reagan's presidency. I wanted to be part of this beautiful, rich culture, not merely a tourist. What didn't occur to me in my young, naive mind, that was only 20 years ago since Cameroonians had cast off the yoke of colonial oppression. Why would they allow me, a young white member of the oppressor class, to be in their inner circle? Since I wasn't fitting in, I fell back on old familiar routines. Every afternoon, I ran up the mountainside for an hour to a small farming community in the rainforest. After some chit-chat with the farmers and a drink of sweet spring water, I headed back down the mountain to my home. As I arrived back in town, I was greeted by a young child in a blue school uniform. "Please, sir, what are you doing?" I tried to explain that I was out for a run, out for a jog. Her expression was puzzled. Coming from a farming community where hard labor was the norm, she couldn't understand why I would voluntarily exert myself. Finally, she looked up knowingly and asked, "Are you taking sport? Getting ready for the race?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking sport." I shook her hand and headed home. As the weeks passed, more and more young schoolgirls gathered to wave at me as I ran by. By the third week, there are more than 24 had assembled to clap and chant as I passed. "Jesus Mountain Racer! Jesus Mountain Racer!" Do they think I look like Jesus? Man, I've got to eat better. Maybe they were mocking my long flowing brown hair and beard. But after a while, I started to enjoy my newly found fan club. A week later, I received an unexpected invitation to dinner with my colleagues. One of the schoolgirl fan club members was my boss's daughter, who lightly informed him about Jesus Mountain Racer. As we settled in for after-dinner drinks and conversation, I shared stories about my fans and my running. "Oh, you should run the mountain race," they explained. They told me about the Mount Cameroon race, which takes place during the first week of the dry season. It is a 38-kilometer race from the town of Buea to the summit of Mount Cameroon, about 13,000 feet, and back. They recounted a story about a Jesuit priest with mystical powers who had won the race every year for the past decade. After an evening of beer and palm wine, an entry form appeared. It turned out my boss was a race official. Everyone slapped me on the back and offered me encouraging words. "Oh, Mr. Matthew, you have to do the race. You'll represent our organization." Our boss chimed in, "Do us proud, Mr. Matthew." I filled out the form that night. 3 weeks later, I found myself in the early morning mist with 100 other very fit-looking mountain guides waiting for the beginning of the race. The crowd of onlookers parted. The priest emerged. He didn't look mystical. He was more like a white version of an Ethiopian runner dressed like a character from Heidi, in lederhosen, long socks, and running shoes. Equipped with mountaineering glasses and ebony hiking sticks, he took his place at the head of the assembled runners. I was wearing cotton shorts and a long sweatshirt. With 2 candy bars in my pocket, I took a last drink of water, and followed the rest of the pack. My strategy was simple: run the flats and walk the hills. As it turned out, there were no flats. The first part of the race was a winding path climbing stairs created by the roots of rainforest trees. Mud and plant muck made the going slow and slippery. Then the trail switched back up through razor-sharp tall grass. The mist cleared, and the ominous volcanic wasteland that was the summit of Mount Cameroon appeared in front of me. A wave of exhaustion slapped me in the head. I stumbled into the stone warming hut halfway up the mountain, needing water and a jump start. When I came out, I saw the priest swishing down the mountain gravel like a slalom skier. "Bless you, my son," he called out in a French accent as he bounded by like an antelope. No one else in the race was even in sight. After consuming 3 bananas and drinking some water, I set off for the summit. The trail resembled a zigzag stitch weaving through the volcanic gravel. After 30 to 40 minutes, I encountered the next runner. The stream of descending racers allowed me to rest briefly with each high five. 2 hours passed, and finally in the distance, a Buddha-like figure sat on the rock on the summit. Upon my arrival, he handed me a brown bottle without uttering a word. "Thanks," I beamed, as if I had won a prize. I took a long, enthusiastic sip. It tasted like barley and tar. My gag reflex made me spit it out immediately. It was Guinness Stout. After all, Guinness was the sponsor of the race. With an expression of disappointment and a deep, gruff voice, the Buddha figure informed me, "Guinness be good for the blood." The descent was long and disorienting. My quads screamed as the energy drained away. I navigated the volcanic scree, pushed through the razor-sharp grass. It descended the ladder-like roots of the rainforest. I could barely walk when I reached the road at the end of town. As I limped closer to the finish, I saw a choir of primary school girls. I could hear them clapping and singing, "Jesus Mountain Racer! Jesus Mountain Racer!" With their encouragement, I somehow managed a slow jog and crossed the finish line, dead last. With Jesus Mountain Racer echoing in the town square, I collapsed onto a rounded boulder. One of the schoolgirls offered me a small baguette and some water. Prosper, you remember Prosper, sat beside me and said, "Massa, you to try well." And he guided me through the motions of the countryman handshake. My hands were too sweaty to make this finger snap when we released, but he smiled, appreciating my effort. My friends, My Cameroonian friends gathered around me, patting me on the back, and offering me congratulations. "You represented us well," my boss said. Two of the strongest among them helped me to my feet, and I limped home with my arms draped over their shoulders. When I hobbled into work on Monday, the whole office gave me approving looks. Everyone wanted to hear Mr. Matthew tell the story of the Mount Cameroon race. For a short while, I was a minor celebrity. Many people in town wanted to hear about the race and greeted me with, "How are you, mountain racer?" Best of all, when I went to my regular vegetable vendor, I was greeted with, "Hana," that's pidgin for hello, "Hana, mountain racer." When bargaining for the final price, I said, "Mommy, I beg, bring the countryman price." With a wry smile, she told me, "Bring your money." Yes! Maybe I was on my way to becoming a countryman. Thanks.